So now we will start the discussion about AWS project ideas enlisted on HEPro.in. In this discussion part, we will explore one of the beginner level project, serverless web application using AWS. In this project, you will build a serverless web application on AWS using managed services, eliminating the need to manage servers. You will design the front end using S3 and CloudFront for hosting static content, implement dynamic backend logging with AWS Lambda functions, and store application data in DynamoDB. You will also set up API gateway to expose your Lambda functions as APIs and optionally integrate Cognito for authentication. By completing this project, you will understand serverless architecture, event-driven programming, cloud storage, and managed compute services, and deliver a fully functional, scalable web application without provisioning any servers. Moving on. In this project, you will build a serverless web application on AWS. You will host your front end on Amazon S3, letting it serve HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files securely and globally. Your backend logging runs on AWS Lambda, which executes your functions automatically in response to events without requiring any server management. API gateway will sit in front of Lambda to route HTTP requests and handle security, logging, and throttling. Finally, you will use DynamoDB as the database for storing application data and optionally Cognito for user authentication. By the end, you will understand serverless architecture, event-driven computing, scalable cloud storage, and secure API integration. And you will have a fully functional, low-maintenance web application. Let us move to the next slide for further discussion. In this project, you will use DynamoDB to store your app's data. It's a fully managed, high-performance NoSQL database that scales automatically and integrates seamlessly with Lambda. Cognito will manage your users, handling registration, sign-in, and authentication, including multi-factor options. Your workflow starts with front-end development, where you create a single-page app and host it on S3 with optional CloudFront for fast delivery. Next, you will create RESTful APIs in API Gateway and connect each endpoint to a Lambda function. In Lambda, you will write the backend logic to perform CRUD operations on DynamoDB, for example, adding a user with post, fetching users with get, or deleting with delete. This setup teaches you serverless integration, event-driven backend design, and secure, scalable cloud applications. Moving on in the next slide. In this project, you will set up a DynamoDB table with primary keys to store your app data. Then use the AWS SDK in Lambda to read and write that specific data. You will configure Cognito to manage user signup, login, and authentication and protect API routes so only authenticated users can access them. After testing your endpoints using Postman or the API Gateway console, you will deploy the full application, making it accessible via the S3 static website URL. For example, you could build a serverless task tracker where users log in, add, view, update, or delete tasks, with the front end talking to API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB. By completing this, you will learn serverless architecture, REST API development, NoSQL database management, cloud hosting, authentication, and integration of multiple AWS services into a seamless application. Let us move to the next slide for further discussion. In this project, you will build a fully serverless task tracker app using AWS. You will host your front end on S3, create RESTful APIs with API Gateway, and write Lambda functions to handle CRUD operations on DynamoDB. You will set up Cognito to manage user signup, login, and authentication so each user can securely manage their tasks. By the end, you will have a working app where users can add, view, update, and delete tasks without managing any servers. Through this project, you will gain hands-on experience in end-to-end AWS service integration, serverless backend design, cloud hosting, NoSQL database usage, and secure authentication, giving you a real-world understanding of scalable cloud-native web applications. Moving on. In this project, you will follow a serverless architecture where the front end is hosted on S3, API gateway handles requests, Lambda functions process the logic, and DynamoDB stores your data. Cognito manages authentication, issuing JWT tokens when users sign up or log in. When a user adds, edits, or deletes a task, the front end sends the request with the token to API gateway, which validates it and triggers the corresponding Lambda function. The Lambda function interacts with DynamoDB and returns the result to the front end, giving the user instant feedback. This workflow shows how serverless components work together seamlessly for a fully managed, scalable application. Let us move to the next slide. In this project, you will implement core functionalities for a serverless task app. First, users authenticate via Cognito, handling sign up, sign in, and password resets, with JWT tokens securing API requests. Next, you will build task management features. Users can add, view, update, or delete tasks, with each task stored in DynamoDB containing fields like task ID, user ID, task name, description, status, and created at. Security is enforced so that only authenticated users can access their tasks. With API gateway validating tokens before invoking Lambda functions, this setup demonstrates how authentication, serverless backend logic, and database storage work together in a cloud-native application. Moving on in the discussion. In this workflow, you will see how the serverless task app handles users' actions end to end. First, a user registers via Cognito, which then issues an ID token upon login. All task operations like adding, viewing, updating, or deleting tasks go through API gateway endpoints that trigger Lambda functions. These functions interact with DynamoDB to store and retrieve data. Each task is stored with attributes like task ID, user ID, task name, description, status, and created at. This demonstrates how authentication, API routing, serverless functions, and a NoSQL database work together in a fully managed, scalable cloud application. Moving on. By completing this project, you will gain hands-on experience building a fully serverless web application. You will learn to design event-driven architectures using AWS Lambda, integrate APIs via API Gateway, and manage user authentication with Cognito. You will model and store data in DynamoDB while hosting the front-end securely on S3. By the end, you will have working task tracking app that's scalable, low maintenance, and fully deployed on AWS, giving you real-world insights into connecting multiple cloud services into a cohesive serverless application. So that is everything that can be explained from the beginner level project serverless web application using AWS. Stay tuned for upcoming projects from HEPro.